What happens when a CEO goes undercover for answers and ends up watching an employee kick out a disabled teen? Elliot Daniels sat in the back corner booth of a busy restaurant in downtown Denver, one of 19 locations he'd built up from scratch over the last 12 years. He wore a faded hoodie, fake reading glasses, and jeans speckled with paint. To everyone else, he looked like a quiet contractor grabbing a late lunch. No one suspected he was the man who founded the restaurant chain. The reason for this visit wasn't anything dramatic.
No mejor que en plans, no low shots, no staffing crisis.
Just a gut feeling. The previous week, while reviewing numbers and comment cards from all locations, Elliot noticed this particular store had a weird pattern: high turnover, inconsistent reviews, and a few vague complaints about staff being cold or unwelcoming. Nothing concrete. Most of the comments were just vague enough to be brushed off. But Elliot didn't believe in guessing games. If something was off, he'd find it himself. He hadn't met the staff here before. This was a newer store, opened 8 months ago, and due to a scheduling conflict, he'd missed the grand opening. Since then, he'd only spoken to the district manager and read reports. That made this the perfect spot to blend in. The lunch rush was dying down, but the place was still half full. Elliot picked at a sandwich, watching how the staff moved. A young hostess named Riley greeted guests with a tired smile. A dishwasher in the back moved like he was on autopilot. But it was the waiter, tall, broad-shouldered, mid-30s, with a sharp jawline and a name tag that read Cody, who drew Elliot's attention. Cody moved fast, but not in a good way. He didn't smile. He didn't thank customers. He dropped off plates like he was throwing them down. Twice, Elliot watched him brush past Riley without even acknowledging her. Then it happened. The front door opened, and a teenage girl walked in, maybe 16 or 17, holding a leash. By her side was a golden retriever wearing a blue vest that read, "Service Animal." The girl approached the hostess, stand quietly. Riley looked up, smiled, then hesitated. "Hi, can I just get a table for one, please?" the girl asked. Her voice was soft but clear. "Of course," Riley said, but before she could grab a menu, Cody appeared. "Is that a dog?" he said loudly, walking over. The girl blinked. "He's a service animal." "We don't allow animals in here," Cody said, voice raised enough that nearby tables turned. "Health code." "He's a medical alert dog," she said a little shakily. "I have my paperwork. I don't care what he is," Cody snapped. "You need to leave." Riley stepped in. "Cody, it's a service dog. I said no." He cut her off. "You want to get us shut down? Get her out." Elliot's hands tightened around his fork. He stood quietly, heart pounding. The girl looked like she wanted to vanish. She stepped back toward the door, crouched next to the dog, and whispered something as she turned to leave. Riley looked helpless. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the girl. I'm really sorry." The girl didn't answer. She just walked out with her dog, head down. Elliot stared at Cody. Cody glanced around like nothing had happened and went back to clearing plates. Elliot sat back down, pulse racing. He couldn't blow his cover, not yet. He needed to see more. He needed to know if this was a one-time thing or a symptom of something bigger. He stayed for another hour, ordering coffee just to linger. He watched Cody ignore customers, snap at Riley, and roll his eyes when a table asked for the check to be split. But he also watched Riley. She was patient.
Kind.
She apologized for Cody's behavior more than once, always with a quiet voice and a forced smile. She even helped the dishwasher when he dropped a tray of glasses. By the time Elliot stood up to leave, he knew 2 things. First, Cody wasn't just having a bad day. He was the problem. Second, Riley deserved better. Elliot tossed some cash on the table and walked out. He didn't go home. He called the district manager and arranged a meeting for the next morning. Because tomorrow, Elliot Daniels wasn't coming in as a customer. He was coming in as the boss. The next morning, Elliot pulled into the alley behind the restaurant just after 7. The sun was still low, casting long shadows across the dumpsters and loading dock. He parked his truck beside the delivery van and stepped out, dressed in black kitchen pants, steel-toe shoes, and a plain gray zip-up, no logos, no hints of who he was. A baseball cap pulled low helped cover most of his face. He'd arranged to come in as a new dishwasher, using a fake name Mark. The district manager had been told Elliot wanted to run a quiet audit on store-level operations by posing as a temp worker. Only the manager and HR knew. Everyone else thought he was a last-minute fill-in from a staffing agency. Inside, the back kitchen was already humming. Pans clattered, the fryer hissed, and someone was swearing under their breath trying to fit a new CO2 cartridge under the soda machine. The kitchen manager, a wiry man in his early 40s named Luis, looked up from a prep list. "You the temp?"
Yeah.
"Mark." Luis gave him a quick once-over. "You washed dishes before?" "Plenty." Luis didn't ask for details. Just pointed to a pair of gloves hanging by the sink, handed him a stained apron, and got back to his clipboard. Elliot started scrubbing trays without saying another word. He kept his head down but watched every movement around him. The kitchen wasn't chaotic, but it wasn't smooth either. One of the fry cooks, a kid named Brandon, looked like he hadn't slept. He kept glancing at his phone between orders, his hands moving slower than the lunch pace would tolerate later. A prep cook shuffled past muttering about a missing case of onions. By 8:15, the front doors were unlocked. Riley arrived through the side entrance a few minutes later, hair pulled back into a clean ponytail, wearing the same uniform and a fresh layer of quiet determination. She greeted everyone she passed, including Elliot. "Morning. You must be new."
Yeah.
"First day." She nodded. "Good luck. It gets loud in here." He smiled faintly. "I'll manage." What struck him immediately was how often she stepped in to help without being asked. When the hostess stand printer jammed, she didn't call for a manager, she fixed it herself. When a vendor arrived with a delivery that no one had signed for, she found the invoice, flagged Luis, and coordinated the handoff without making a fuss. She did 3 jobs in the span of 10 minutes, and no one seemed to notice. At 9:30, Cody strolled in through the front, not using the employee entrance like everyone else. He wore sunglasses, which he didn't take off until he was halfway through the kitchen. Luis glanced up from the prep station. "You're late." Cody shrugged. "Traffic. You live 6 blocks away." Cody didn't answer, just tossed his bag under the server station and started pouring himself a soda. No one challenged him. Luis went back to his prep list, jaw tight. By 10, the energy in the building shifted. Servers began checking their stations. The music came on in the dining room. Elliot stayed by the dish pit, hands raw from scrubbing, but his ears tuned to everything. Cody talked down to the other servers, calling one of them kid despite them being nearly the same age, telling another to stop dragging her feet. He never raised his voice, but the tone was always just sharp enough to cut. Then a new hostess arrived, Lena. She couldn't have been more than 20, short, with a nervous energy and a stack of flashcards peeking from her apron. First day, clearly. As she reached the podium, Riley turned toward her with a warm expression. "Hey, you made it." "I'm glad. I took the wrong bus at first. I thought I was going to be late." "You're fine. I'll show you how to load the waitlist." But before Riley could start, Cody slid in between them. "Wait, she's the new hire?" Lena blinked. Yeah. You're gonna need to do something about that hair. We're not running a street fair here." Lena's face fell. "Is there a problem?" "It's orange. It's copper. It's natural." "Yeah, well, it doesn't look professional." Riley stepped in. "Cody, it's within dress code. We already checked. I'm just saying what the customers are gonna think." No one's complained. They don't have to. First impressions matter. Elliot watched from the back, his blood going cold. Cody's tone wasn't casual, it was calculated. "And Lena? She looked like she wanted to crawl under the counter. Riley didn't back down. She's good. Let her work. Cody raised his hands in mock surrender and walked off. By 11:15, the first tables were seated. Elliot moved faster now, hands slick from detergent, listening for anything that might tip him off to how deep this went. He saw more. Cody refused to refill a customer's drink because that's the busser's job. He rolled his eyes when a guest asked to sub out a side salad. He insisted on taking a 4-top himself even though another server was next in rotation, and when the food ran 10 minutes late, he blamed the kitchen loud enough for the cooks to hear. At one point, Riley stopped by the dish station, carrying a tray of silverware. Luis said to double roll forks for the patio. I can help if you want. I'm good, Elliot said. You've got enough going on. She smiled, tired but sincere. That's kind of the job. She turned to leave, then hesitated. If anyone gives you a hard time, she said, just ignore it. Not everyone here makes it easy. Notice that. She didn't say who she meant. At noon, Elliot watched Cody take an order from a family of 4, 2 parents, 2 kids. The little boy had a laminated card around his neck that read, nonverbal. The mom politely explained the situation and asked if they could have extra napkins and a bit more time to decide. Cody cut her off. Yeah, I get it. Just wave me down when you're ready. He walked away before she could finish. Elliot felt heat rise in his chest again. He dried his hands, stepped to the edge of the kitchen, and watched as the family sat in silence. The dad whispered something to the mom, who shook her head. The boy fidgeted with his card. No one returned to the table for almost 15 minutes. Finally, Riley approached them, even though it wasn't her section. She knelt beside the table, listened, nodded, and brought them drinks and napkins without writing anything down. Cody noticed from across the room. He stalked over to her near the soda machine. You trying to steal my table? They've been waiting. I don't need you babysitting my section. They needed help. I have it handled. They didn't think so. Cody stepped closer. You think you're gonna get promoted playing the hero? Riley didn't flinch. I think customers deserve respect. Elliot stepped out from the back, wiping his hands on a towel. Hey. Cody turned, surprised. You need something?
Yeah.
Manager. Luis heard the tone and came over immediately. Elliot pulled out his wallet, removed a folded business card, and held it out to Cody. Cody took it, glanced down, and froze. Elliot's voice stayed calm. You're done here. What? You're being terminated. Right now. Luis looked between them, stunned. Wait, Elliot raised a hand.
I'm Elliot Daniels.
Founder. Owner. This is my restaurant. Cody opened his mouth but couldn't form words. Elliot continued. You humiliated a disabled teenager yesterday. You demeaned a new employee today. You've disrespected customers and staff since you walked in. I don't need an explanation. I've seen more than enough. Cody stammered. You don't understand the pressure. I understand exactly what I saw.
Get your things.
You're off the clock. Cody looked at Luis, then Riley, then back at Elliot. No one spoke. He walked out without another word. Elliot turned to Luis. We'll talk. Later.
Luis nodded. Vale.
Riley stood nearby, silent. You okay? Elliot asked her. She nodded slowly. I didn't expect that. You should have never had to deal with it. Not for one day. He looked around at the stunned staff. Changes were coming. But first he needed to sit down with every single person in that building and really listen. Elliot stepped into the back office, closed the door behind him, and folded his arms. Luis stood near the desk, clearly unsure where to look. The silence dragged. Elliot kept his voice low. You knew about Cody. Luis shifted his weight. I figured he could be rough. But I didn't know it was. You didn't know because you didn't ask. Elliot cut him off, not with anger, but certainty. You have eyes. You've been here every day. You saw how he talked to people. Luis didn't answer. I'm not interested in excuses. I want transparency.
Now. Luis nodded slowly.
He was one of our first hires when we opened. Came with good references. Took charge early. I thought he was efficient. You thought he could run the floor without bothering you. That hit. Luis didn't deny it. Elliot pulled a folded sheet of paper from his back pocket notes he'd written out the night before, after yesterday's incident. I want to know why turnover's been high here. Why operations are inconsistent. Why your staff is covering for a guy who is dragging this place down. Luis sat in the chair across from him. Because I let it slide. I was trying to keep volume moving. We've been short-staffed for months. Every time I lost someone, I had to train someone new. Cody stepped in, filled gaps. I figured some attitude was better than no coverage. Elliot leaned forward. You were patching holes with gasoline. Luis glanced at the floor. I thought I could fix it later. I was wrong. You were. They sat in silence a moment longer. Then Elliot stood. You're still here because the rest of this team deserves a chance. But you're not running this location the same way anymore. Luis looked up. What do you want me to do? Start over.
Today.
You're not off the hook, but you get to show me you can do better. That means checking in with your team. Actually listening. We're not waiting for problems to escalate again. As Elliot left the office, the hallway buzzed with tension. Word had spread fast. Staff avoided eye contact. Some looked confused. Others looked relieved. He stepped into the break room where Riley was finishing a cup of water, standing alone by the wall. She looked up. I didn't expect you to come back here. I'm not here to play CEO today, Elliot said. I'm here to find out what it's going to take to fix this. Riley set her cup down. You already fixed half of it. Only half. You've been holding this place together. She hesitated, then said, I tried. But it's not just one guy. It's the way things have been. People leave because they don't feel protected. They know if someone crosses a line, no one's going to stop them. Elliot nodded. That changes now. She studied his face. How do we know it sticks? After you leave, I mean. He didn't answer right away. Then, because I'm not leaving until it does. He stepped back into the kitchen, where Brandon was checking stock at the fry station. Elliot approached him directly. You've been working doubles? Brandon blinked.
Yeah.
For a while. You look like you haven't slept. Brandon gave a tired laugh. I get off at 11, nap, then come back. That's not sustainable. I know. But we're short. If I don't show, someone else gets crushed. Elliot turned toward Luis, who'd followed him out of the office. We need a second-line cook. Immediately. No more patchwork shifts. Luis nodded. I'll call in the temp list. No, Elliot said. Get someone permanent. Pay above market. We're not filling gaps with temp labor anymore. As that sunk in, Elliot turned and walked out to the dining room. Lena was at the hostess stand, trying to organize the waitlist. She flinched when he approached, unsure what to expect. Elliot kept his tone even. You handled yourself well this morning. She kept her hands clasped tight in front of her. I didn't really do anything. You stayed calm. That matters. She looked down at the floor. I thought I'd get sent home. You're not going anywhere. You belong here. Then he motioned to Riley, who had stepped out behind him. Can you stay a few minutes after your shift? He asked Riley. She nodded. Good. I want her input on rebuilding this team. The rest of the lunch service passed with a quiet tension. Without Cody on the floor, things actually ran smoother. Orders were slower, but calmer. Guests weren't interrupted. No one barked over others. Luis took over floor management, and Riley helped him juggle seating and server rotations. At 3, Elliot gathered the team in the dining room: servers, kitchen, and front staff. A few leaned against tables, unsure what to expect. Elliot stood in the center, no notes, no clipboard. I came here undercover because I didn't trust the reports I was getting, he began. I needed to see for myself what this place had become. And I did. He looked each of them in the eye. You've been working hard. Too hard. And too many of you have been doing it without support, without recognition, and under leadership that didn't have your back. That ends today. No one spoke, but the room leaned in. We're hiring more staff. Not temps. Real people, full-time. We're increasing pay for kitchen and FOH. We're restructuring how we promote. You won't get ahead by stepping on others. He paused. And if anyone here ever sees something wrong, a guest mistreated, a coworker disrespected, a rule bent to convenience someone's ego, you speak up. You'll be protected, not punished. Luis stepped forward. Starting tomorrow, I'll be holding individual check-ins. I want to hear from every one of you.
No filters.
Elliot nodded. If you're not comfortable with that, you can schedule time directly with me. I'm not disappearing after today. I'll be in and out of this location regularly. Quietly or not. One of the bussers, a wiry kid named Marcus, raised his hand. What about Riley? Elliot turned to her. She's going to help train the next floor leads. And if she wants the assistant manager slot, it's hers. Riley blinked. I haven't, you've earned it. But the choice is yours. The staff looked at her, waiting. She finally nodded. I'll do it. But only if we do it right. Elliot smiled. That's the only way we're doing anything from now on. As the team dispersed, some in quiet conversations, others heading to prep for dinner, Elliot stayed back with Luis. You've got one shot, Elliot said. Don't waste it. Luis gave a quiet nod. I won't. Elliot stepped outside through the side door. The sun had dropped lower now, casting amber light across the sidewalk. He looked across the street where the girl with the service dog had stood just yesterday, silent, humiliated, turned away. He wasn't going to let that happen again. Not here. Not anywhere with his name on the door. The following week began with a quiet but deliberate shift. By 7:30 each morning, Riley arrived early to review the new scheduling software. They'd rolled out, an actual upgrade, not just a spreadsheet. She sat in the back office with a printed roster and a yellow highlighter, adjusting shifts based on the one-on-one conversations she'd started having with the team over the past few days. Luis gave her the space. Not out of obligation, but because Elliot had made it explicitly clear, Riley's leadership wasn't symbolic. She was expected to operate. And she did. Elliot returned midweek without any announcement, no baseball cap, no fake name. He wore a plain polo and jeans and walked through the front door during a lull between the lunch and dinner rush. A few guests glanced up. One of the line cooks spotted him as he passed the expo window and tilted his chin in acknowledgement, but no one made a scene. He found Riley at the bar helping Lena with inventory counts. The newer hostess had grown more comfortable since her first day. She carried a small notepad and asked questions directly, now no hesitations, no nervous glances. You've got 2 bottles missing from the last order, Riley said, scanning a clipboard. Double-check the back shelf. Sometimes they get pushed behind the mixers. Lena ducked into the service area without pause. Elliot leaned on the counter. You look like you've been doing this a lot longer than a week. I've been doing this for years. Just didn't get the title until now. You still want it? I wouldn't be here if I didn't. He nodded once.
Good.
I've started reviewing candidates for a general manager role. Someone who can take on logistics, hiring, and vendor negotiations. You're not expected to do it all. I don't want to. She looked him dead in the eyes. I want to lead the floor. Train the staff.
Keep the energy right.
But I don't want to be stuck in the office with spreadsheets. That's not where I'm useful. Elliot appreciated the clarity. You'll help vet whoever takes the GM spot. I want someone you can work with, not around. As they spoke, the front door opened. The same family from last week stepped inside, the boy with the laminated card hanging from his neck, now wearing noise-canceling headphones. His mother cautiously scanned the dining room. Riley didn't hesitate. "I've got them." She walked over with the kind of calm that didn't need rehearsing. She greeted the boy, crouched briefly to wave hello, and asked his parents if they'd like the same booth as before, the one near the back, quieter. They nodded, visibly relieved. Elliot didn't interrupt. He watched from a distance as Riley guided them to the table, offered extra napkins without being asked, and asked the boy's name before returning to the host's stand. When she made it back, Elliot said, "You remembered them." "I remember all of them." He didn't press further. In the kitchen, Brandon was wrapping up a shortened shift. They'd hired a second-line cook, an older, methodical man named Darnell, who didn't speak much but had an efficient rhythm. Brandon had gone back to regular hours. He moved slower than some of the younger staff, but he wasn't dragging. He was present. Elliot caught him, wiping down the prep counter. "You've been consistent," Elliot said. "I've had enough sleep to remember my name. That helps." "You met Darnell yet?" "We worked the grill together yesterday. He doesn't talk, but he's solid." "You think he's a good fit?" "He's not Cody." "That's a good start." Elliot didn't laugh, but his expression softened. "We want to bring on one more by end of month. You'll help train them?" Brandon nodded.
Yeah.
"I'm game. Don't burn out again. If you need time, speak up." "I will." The message had landed. Not just with Brandon, but others too. The staff meetings had shifted from tight-lipped attendance to open discussion. Luis, now visibly more engaged, used a dry erase board to track issues raised during check-ins. He didn't make speeches. He asked questions. And he wrote down the answers where everyone could see them. Accountability had stopped being an idea and started being an expectation. They'd restructured the floor rotation. Riley made sure Lena got paired with a different server each shift to build confidence. One of the senior servers, a woman named Marisol, had taken Lena under her wing. They moved through the floor together like gears in sync, Marisol checking in on tables, Lena handling walk-ins and updating the board without prompting. When Elliot stepped outside for air near the end of the shift, he found Luis sitting on the curb beside the loading bay, drinking from a dented water bottle. "You're not ducking out, are you?" Elliot asked. Luis shook his head. "Just clearing my head." Elliot sat down beside him. Luis stared out at the alley. "You were right. I let the wrong person steer the culture. I kept thinking if I just kept quiet long enough, things would settle. But it doesn't work like that."
No.
"It doesn't." Luis exhaled. "I've been doing this 20 years. You'd think I'd know better." "Experience doesn't mean much if you stop listening." "I'm listening now." Elliot nodded. They didn't speak for a while. Eventually, Luis stood. "I've got to finish the closeout." "You still good to debrief tomorrow?" "I'll be here." Back inside, cleanup moved at a steady pace. Tables were wiped down, chairs lifted, and silverware rolled. No one rushed out the door. There was no tension in the air, no glances over shoulders. At the bar, Riley was helping Lena close the register. Elliot waited until the drawer clicked shut. He looked at Riley. "I want to do something for the team. Not a bonus. Something real. Something that sticks." She thought for a moment. "Give them a path." "Explain." "Some of them want to move up. Some don't. But none of them want to feel stuck. If you create roles that aren't just about title, like team leads, specialists, trainers, they'll see a future." "You interested in designing that?" "With the right help, yeah." "You'll have it." As the final staff clocked out, Elliot gathered them briefly near the back door. Just a few words, nothing rehearsed. "You rebuilt this place," he said. "Not me. I just cleared the path." He gestured toward Riley. "She's leading the floor. You follow her, you'll get better. You challenge her, she'll hear you. But if anyone tries to drag this place backwards, they won't last." That's not a threat. It's a promise. No one looked uncomfortable. They didn't need to. Elliot let the staff filter out before locking up. As he turned off the lights, He paused at the front booth, the one where he'd first sat, watching Cody humiliate that girl. He didn't know her name, but he'd already made contact with a local nonprofit that trained service animals. They were mailing out a meal voucher and a written apology. Not a form letter. A personal one. Signed by Elliot himself. He stepped out into the night, keys in hand. The restaurant behind him wasn't perfect, but it was honest again. And that was enough for now.